All right, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Indoor Ag Science Café. I'm Cherry Kubota. I'm a professor at the Ohio State University. This is a monthly program we are doing as an outreach of our OptimIA project, which is funded by USDA NIFA, SCRI grant program. Basically, this is for a learning opportunity for you and information exchange among professionals, scientists, engineers working in indoor agriculture, vertical farming. So the members of OptimIA team include those in Michigan State University, Ohio State University, Purdue University, and the University of Arizona. All right, so just a little bit of a head schedule. So we have a special speaker from RII, Rob Eddy, talking about credentialing program for new CEA employees. And then June, we have Dr. Chris Curry talking about growing culinary herbs under controlled environment. And then as usual, if you are familiar with what we do, there's no cafe in July, and then new program starts in August. Once a month, usually Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern. All right, with that, I like to have Rob here. So that Rob has worked in many I guess sectors, including academia and industry, and now RII, non-profit organization, and in charge of technical side of CEA, and then in charge of educational programs, and then exciting things are happening. So that's why we invited Rob to talk about climate smart credentialing of new CEA employees by Resource Innovation Institute. So with that, I'm gonna stop sharing and then have Rob to start talking about what's new in his program.
Good morning, and thank you, Cherry. It's an honor to be here. I really am a big fan of Indoor Ag Science Cafe, and it has made me a better horticulturalist and a better professional. And so I'm just delighted to be here. I'm going to share with you an introduction to RII and then talk about our Climate Smart Credentialing Program, as the title implies. First of all, a little bit about RII. Some of you may not know who we are. Some of you probably have heard of us, are not sure exactly what we do. I want to kind of clear all that up because we just love to network with folks, and that starts with trust and knowing where we come from and what we do. So we were founded in 2016 in Portland, Oregon. We serve the cannabis industry for the first 2 or 3 years, and then we got a USDA grant and been serving the food and ornamental crops of the CEA industry since then. My role is technical director. I've been with RII for 9 months now. We're a nonprofit agency involved in public-private partnerships between industry, governments, and universities. That's what makes it so fun for me, just bringing all these ideas together. We have a mission to improve resource use efficiency in CEA. We are USDA and NRCS funded. We're also funded by vendor memberships. They join RII for a membership fee. And also we have contracts for education and for some of the data consulting that we do. So that's how we make ends meet. We hope to extend our federal engagement with the Department of Energy in the near future. What we do, in a nutshell, is we measure resource use efficiency. We educate on it, on improving it, and we validate that education improves efficiency. So what do I mean by that? We measure efficiency with our PowerScore platform. We capture CEA facility data on resource use efficiency, so energy efficiency, water efficiency, emissions, productivity. Okay, we get data on yield and size and protocols. The water and energy data is derived from utility bill level data. So this isn't estimates, it isn't modeling, it's numbers right from the utility bills, and that helps, alleviate any errors. The only problem with that is a lot of facilities might only have one electric meter or one water meter. So that's a downside of that. So we encourage facilities to, as they're being built or renovated, to sub-meter both the water and the electricity. So we compare key performance indicators month over month and year over year. And that's free to the grower thanks to USDA. They can see how they are improving. So it's a benefit to the grower, but it's also a benefit to the industry. So some growers, some of the large growers, both greenhouse and indoor farms, have agreed to participate. That means they've agreed to share their data on energy and water efficiency. And that's what so many have called for. So many professors, so many government regulators. We just need data. We need to be deciding what the units should be, what the metrics should be, and start publishing data so we can have a better idea of where we are and how to improve. And this is a first stab at it. So this is a benchmarking report that we will release this summer in July, probably mid-July. And it has utility bill level data from 12 CEA facilities from 11 US states. And so it's not a huge data set with just 12 participants, but frankly, there are just so little data out there. We think a lot of people will enjoy seeing this data. There's some very interesting findings from this data already. I can't talk about what they are right now, but you'll see when the report comes out. And we think this will be the first step in the industry coming together and being able to describe their energy and water use and emissions with the same metrics and with the same protocols. Another way we educate is with free best practices guides. So we develop these. We don't just dream them up on our own. We put together working groups of individuals at companies, equipment vendors, utilities. Companies get involved, government regulatory agencies get involved, and other agencies, academics. We have several professors that agree to join us, and all this is volunteer. And everyone from industry, it's really nice. The people who tend to volunteer for this already have a kind of industry-minded outlook. So they take off their company hats and put on their industry hats, and they share their information. This is not about them being able to promote their products or anything. This is just about us coming together and writing industry-informed content. But actually, one step further than that, we had this industry-informed content of the technology in use now, developing the best practices, and we also bring in the new scientific discoveries coming out of academia and industry. We bring that all together, and that's what RAI is pretty good at doing, bringing those two communities together and information that you couldn't get anywhere else. So here's some guides that we just recently published. We tend to focus on one thing like HVAC or lighting or facility design. The one that I'm very excited about, because this is the one I've been working on for the last 8 months. This is coming in June. It's the CEA Water Circularity Best Practices Guide. So what is water circularity? Well, it's reducing your water footprint by reducing, remediating, and reusing. Here's the companies and the universities and the groups that came together to be on my water circularity working group. We had 8 sessions, and from that, I distilled all that expertise down. And again, we also did a very large literature search to understand what the new science is. We distilled that down into a new document. Here's a sneak peek inside. This document, it's meant to be for a general audience, okay? And that's a lot of fun. And I have a editor who works at one of the magazines, the trade industry magazines, and he helps make sure that my language is understandable, that it's clear, that it's focused. And we also have scientific review done by, in this case, Paul Fisher, University of Florida, and Rosa Radal's University UConn. And so we've got both readable material, but also scientifically validated that we didn't say anything that was incorrect. But it's meant for a general audience. So we start off by talking about, hey, how, because imagine some of these people reading this might be brand new growers. Then maybe they are people who work in the water treatment industry. So we can't assume what they know. So we talk about how do CEA facilities use water? How do crops use water? I mean, just getting into a little bit of the basics there. And then again, reducing, remediating, reusing. So we spend a little time talking about reducing irrigation water in hydroponics, in substrates, culture, and also reducing water in climate control, because you need a lot of water, particularly if you're a greenhouse using an evaporative pad. That's climate control water, and that uses a heck of a lot of water, as some of you know, and also process water. Then we talk about recapturing water and then remediating it with physical remediation, chemical, and biological. So it's not just the equipment. We also talk about constructed wetlands, because that's also a good alternative for some of the remediating you may need to do. Then we start trying to bring it all together. And this is near and dear to my heart, because as a consultant, I was trying to design a facility that could remediate irrigation water and HVAC condensate, and for design I was doing, and I couldn't find, I really couldn't find a document that would help me. University of Florida, University of Guelph has some excellent information out there, but I wanted to bring it together into an indoor facility. And so it was still, there was a lot of questions, like what equipment would really work? How do I put it together? How big does the room need to be where all this stuff goes? There wasn't a document. So that helps inform me when I'm writing the document about what should be in there. So how do you design that room? How do you bring it all together? How do you remediate, irrigation water, climate control water, like the condensate from HVAC? How do you collect rainwater? All those sort of questions. And then we talk about maintenance, we talk about policy. So on the right of this slide, you'll also see a schematic that kind of shows you where the equipment is, what order it goes in, and where the filters are, where the pumps are. So we just give some examples like that. Okay, I love talking about that. And now we've got other work groups starting up this year as well. It never stops at RII. We're going to be doing a controls automation group that starts next month, and then later on the year, a vertical production best practices obviously for vertical farms. There's some special challenges they have with airflow and uniformity of environment. A lot of great science is being done, a lot of great technology being built. So again, we want to put together a best practice guide to bring all that together. And then the one I'm very excited about, 2024, is an artificial intelligence and machine learning best practices. It may seem pretty new to be writing a best practice guide, but I just decided I really wanted to do this because I think it's important. Again, there needs to be some guide for people to start out with. And we know the technology is there. We pay attention to the autonomous greenhouse contest in the Netherlands. We know that Dr. Kubota has a grant, and she'll be working with multiple universities, but also one of the companies that does AI for greenhouse control. So it's exciting. I believe her greenhouse will also have some of that AI in it. Dr. Both from Rutgers has said he believes AI and machine learning is going to be necessary for the industry to grow, and I believe the same thing. So that's why I'm pretty excited about that one. Now, I'm going to talk about what I was asked to come talk about. And that's our training and credentialing program. So I was a greenhouse manager at Purdue University for 20 years. So I had that research background. I was at Dow AgroSciences at their research greenhouses. So I had that corporate background. Prior to that, I'd worked at a state hospital doing vocational training for individuals with mental disabilities, in this case, schizophrenia. So everywhere I've gone, I've done vocational training, and I've expanded programs that have served individuals with mental disabilities at all of those places. And so So I've got a lot of practical experience in vocational training and also training all these students at Purdue University for 20 years. But I'm not an educator. I don't have formal training in it. So even though it's near and dear to my heart, I don't pretend that I know what I'm doing, okay? So the thing to do in that case is to make sure you talk to people and get the right advice and get the right advisory council together. And that's what I've been doing. I've been kind of on a voice of the industry listening tour, talking to professors and folks in the industries and professors of both, I should say, both community colleges and universities, because community colleges are doing some good work along this line of vocational training. Anybody who would talk to me about it, anybody who had some ideas, I would speak with. Equipment vendors have great ideas because they've been in so many different greenhouses, so they have a better understanding than someone like me who's only been in 3 or 4 dozen facilities. So here's what we determined after that listening tour. CEA producers need more employees. They need better and trained employees. One of the largest gaps is onboarding training. Another finding is a culture of resource efficiency really helps. I mean, by resource efficiency, again, I mean energy reduction, water reduction. It's to make that culture is a little bit of the challenge. And it's really hard to do after the group has been working together, the employee's been working together for 10 years. It's a little bit easier to start at the beginning. Credentialing is a massive undertaking. So again, RII doesn't think we can do it all. The question is, what is the smart role that we can play where we can interact with all the groups that are going to be doing or interested in doing this training or currently doing this training? So there's a lot of great training programs going on, community colleges, universities and such. But there has not yet been a national program that agrees on the standards of what a CEA employee should be able to do, and then how to determine who gets a credential and what for. Okay, big undertaking. And so what we're going to do is target ours and start that way and prove that we can do it. And we're targeting the areas that we think we are a best fit for. And the existing training programs that are out there lack industry-informed experience quite often. So that's something that we can bring. Also, there's a lack of apprenticeships. There's internships. Universities do a good job with the summer internship programs, but apprenticeships would really be a help. So why us? Well, we've got a vast CEA network from what we've been doing. We're nonprofit and transparent. So that's one of the reasons I'm here, to let you all know who we are and what we're doing and why we're doing it, that we've got a mission. We don't have an agenda. Okay, mission, not agenda. We're recognized for resource efficiency. We're recognized for best practices. We're trusted by growers for many reasons, but one, when you think about it, they trust us with their data and to keep it anonymized and aggregated for that. When I talked about that benchmarking report, you won't be able to figure out whose data came from what company, because that's not what they want. They want to protect some of that information. And so we've been trusted to anonymize what we report, and that helps. It's hard to do. You really have to, and I know that a lot of people who've tried this can tell you it's hard to get these companies to release that sort of data because they're really worried it'll get out and be misrepresented to the public. So we know how to build those trusting relationships. We're experienced with training and marketing from the webinars that we provide. And we have a solid, at least I hope it is, a solid relationship with academia. And my hope is that we can extend the reach of their discoveries. So this is what we came up with. Again, targeted, like I described just before, climate smart. There's 2 paths that we want to take that we think we're a good fit for. One is onboarding entry-level folks at crop producers, the folks who are the employees who are handling the plants, doing the sanitation, and doing the minor maintenance work. There's another path that actually we're going to go down first because it's even a better fit for us at this time and place, and that's for the design and trades industry who are building buildings that these plants grow in and need help because a lot of things go wrong. They've not encountered anything quite like this before. So the both paths, and I'll describe them a little bit more in the slides that are coming, they have three things in common. One, that climate smart CA best practices built right in. What that means is we don't talk about irrigation without talking about waste to reduce your waste. We don't talk about cooling a greenhouse or processes that you do inside a greenhouse without talking about how much water it consumes and where you can reduce that. Same thing with energy. We don't talk about lighting or HVAC without talking about ways, smart ways that you can use that equipment that doesn't use so much energy and reduces your peak load, so it keeps your bills down so you can still make a profit. Second thing they both have in common is an apprenticeship model. We want people to learn while they earn. Okay, and that helps with number three, the equitable outcomes. We want to be able to expand and open up this training for all communities, and apprenticeship models are a great way to do that. They're already been hired and they can be trained by their companies, but we can be involved in that training and making sure it's standardized and rigorous, and that micro-credential that the employee would get could be something that benefits both the employee and the firm. So what do I mean? So here, our first pilot program is going to be initiated. We're going to start making the modules starting next month. We hope to roll this out the first quarter of 2024. This will be for the design and construction professionals. It'll focus on crop interaction with the environment, climate smart controls and design, and CA specific equipment. So we're not going to try to teach the people who design indoor farms and in greenhouses in the US. They know how to build buildings. We don't have to teach them about building code and materials and such for the most part, maybe a few materials. We need to teach them about why is it that buildings with plants in it are so hard to control. I mean, there's been so many horror stories about HVAC not being designed well enough to handle the transpiration that crops do. Okay, and so that's the very best example. So we've got a pilot partner we're real proud of, and they came to us and they said, we were successful with this. We want to keep growing and getting better. We feel like our employees need to know a little bit more about how plants work. There'll be recorded modules that'll enhance their building knowledge. And again, with that plant growing, going on inside a building, specific knowledge. There'll be an on-site apprenticeship. So they will have to get their first credential, they'll have to do the recorded modules. That'll probably be 30 hours of work, let's say, and then they'll have to work as an apprentice on their first project, their first building project. Okay, that's good. So this way, with the apprenticeship, it's a little bit more rigorous. It provides a hands-on training, but it also keeps someone from just being able to take a test and say they're credentialed. We want to avoid that. Again, the science and industry-informed content benefit to both the firm and the employee. We are so proud to announce that Arco Murray is our partner for this. They're headquartered in Chicago, leading design and build construction firm in the U.S., and they have a history of doing excellent training. They have their Arco University with over 70,000 modules in it, and we are going to provide the CA climate smart building design training. So here's what those modules will look like. Again, we don't have to make them horticulturalists, okay? That's not the goal, and we're not going to try to teach them what they already know. We're going to try to talk about that in-between part. You know, we're going to teach them a little bit about photosynthesis and respiration, but the parts that inform their design, if that makes sense. So how plants use light and water, plants' interaction with the environment, the differences between greenhouses, indoor farms, and vertical farms, and what some of the challenges will be for each. Some of the CA-specific equipment that they may have not used before, like fertilizer injectors, for example. controls, sensors, and automation that may be much different than they've used before, and in a lot of cases, much faster responding, because you need that, particularly in a greenhouse. You need a fast responding control system. You can't do a greenhouse with building controls. And we also want to let them know what is at stake. So foodborne illnesses, big concern, plant disease triangle, teach them how diseases form and how diseases infect plants, and the sanitation equipment and protocols that go on inside a controlled ag facility. And this, again, so it informs their design, it informs their decision making, and it lets them know what is this facility going to be used for, and it lets them know this is why they're so obsessed with humidity, because if condensation forms on the leaves, it could allow microorganisms to grow. So we want to tell them the why of the obsession with cultivators over things like humidity. And of course, we want to talk about climate smart production. So water circularity in a greenhouse, near and dear to my heart. We want to teach that because it's important for those facilities to be designed to not use so much dang water. And so how do they design a treatment room? How do they collect water? Climate control strategies that reduce peak loads, CO2 enrichment equipment. This is probably stuff they've never used before, and letting them know that how it helps optimize plants, but how CO2 can be used according to the cool new science. Not necessarily new, I shouldn't say that, but CO2 can be used as a replacement for high temperature in the winter in like a greenhouse, or it can be used as a replacement for air conditioning, that if you raise the temperature and the humidity and the light level, that means you've got a higher temperature. You're not having to cool that indoor farm down so much. You can save a lot of money that way, save a lot of energy. Smart lighting software and strategies, glazing, like light diffusing glazing, building envelope materials. There's been a lot of new stuff coming out, a lot of new materials that shift the spectrum of light that penetrates through them. So we're going to talk about that. We're certainly going to talk about shade and thermal curtains, which they've made. If a company's not done greenhouses before, they don't understand just what incredible tools those are for saving energy and protecting plants. And some of the plant empowerment principles that many of you are familiar with. We're going to teach some of those. So the apprenticeship model I've been talking about, there's 5 aspects of it. And we will help with 3 of those. So obviously the classroom learning, that's what we're going to take on. The credentials, managing and awarding and keeping track of those credentials and keeping those credentials secure so that we have them for the length of the entire person's life, so we won't lose them, of course. And then the on-the-job learning, the company's doing, but we're going to help structure that a little bit. Next, I want to talk about the path that we go down to train entry-level employees who will be handling plants, doing sanitation and maintenance work. This will be our second priority. We're going to do that other pilot first, design and construction. But the philosophy behind this program is we want to provide that entry-level training in horticulture principles. So the why of what they're being taught by their supervisors in the indoor ag farm. And also, I know this sounds silly, but how a building works. You know, I was a greenhouse manager for 20 years before I understood how HVAC worked. I mean, that's really sad. And so just teaching them those sort of things so they can become these entry-level employees, frontline employees can become the eyes and the ears, and in a lot of cases, the nose of the facility, so they can tell their supervisors when something doesn't look, smell, or seem right. That'd be real benefit. And also just to generate more curiosity about what's going on around them. We also are going to train on communication skills, how to talk as a team, how to talk with supervisors. We're going to train for data vision. That means being able to interpret a graph, nothing too fancy. This is not rocket science, but people should be able to read a graph, understand a table, look at data, and kind of, understand it, at least not be intimidated by it. So we think about what we're doing. We may be training people with high school degrees, or maybe people didn't even finish high school. So we want to make sure they're comfortable with data. Again, we're going to create that culture, climate smart culture. Again, it'll be modules and on-site apprenticeship like the other program we described. And our goal is to empower these entry-level team members with a career path. So they feel this is a good path for them to be on. They're curious about it. They see how they can grow. And they also see how they can move up, how they can advance through the company, up through the company, by building up these micro credentials that they would receive with our training. Okay. And not only does that help them move up through their company, it also empowers them to leave and go work for a different company. So again, building a solid career. So the modules for this path will look like this. Now, what you don't see is modules that say pruning, mixing fertilizer, disbudding, those things, the horticulture skills that new workers learn. Well, they'll be taught by their supervisors how to do those things. Again, we're trying to teach them the why of why those tasks are so important, and also, again, to get them to thinking about how what they do every day can improve the resource use efficiency of their facility. I know that may sound silly at first, but I tell you, I know, I'm boots on the ground greenhouse manager. I know, for example, that how much water is wasted by leaks in greenhouses, and we just tend to all get blind to leaks. If you work in a greenhouse for a long time, you just kind of get blind to it, but they are accumulating to a vast amount of waste. And so why not teach people about what dreadful waste that is, provide them incentives, reward them for just stopping what they're doing on the way somewhere and grabbing a screwdriver and tightening that hose clamp. Those are the sort of things, that's the kind of culture and the kind of training we want to do. So we want to talk about what CA is to get them excited about it. We could possibly use this module, the CA Revolution module, as a pre-screening module, so that you could get them excited, but you could also tell them in this module about how hot and sweaty this work can be, and sticky and smelly. And so some people might learn right then that this may not be for me, and that would save a lot of time with future training. So with smart yields, we're talking about plant physiology. With plant quality, we'll talk about the tolerances that plants can endure, how to optimize, a little bit about controlled stress and why you would do that. Controlled environments and climate controls and water circularity. Those are all, again, teaching about equipment and how they work and why they're so important. Of course, we got to talk about food safety. And we can also talk about the energy smart module. Will talk about consumption and peak loads. We'll be talking about emissions and how to reduce them, developing that data vision, as I've mentioned, and plant protection, insects and disease. So the last thing I want to talk about, one of the outcomes for this is for equity, that we want to make these training modules accessible to all. And that's not something that I can do. And none of us should feel like we know how to do that. So we partner with organizations that have done this and know how to do it. So that's what RII will be doing. Community organizations, local governments and programs, community colleges, HBCUs, HSIs, and partnering with those organizations. And then the goal is to build careers in CEA. So providing these lifelong digital credentials that are secure. We keep them secure and they're verifiable. So they could be a digital micro-credential can be on your LinkedIn. It can be on your social media. You can send it to people, and that person would be able to open it up, click on it, and find out where the training was, how they did, and what it covered. Okay. The building careers involves hands-on competency training. Of course, that's why we do the apprenticeship program. Access to virtual classroom opportunities beyond just the initial training. And so that they can keep growing and keep accessing educational opportunities. So the learning modules are going to be asynchronous recorded presentations so that they can do them, learn while they earn and do them on their own time. Universal design, that means that it's the actual education module is accessible to all different types of learning styles and abilities. You really need a mobile app to do this because a lot of people don't own laptops because they can't afford them. So you have to have a mobile app to do this, and you have to make your presentation culturally accessible. Okay, can't be just can't be written from my culture. It has to be written by a lot of different people to make sure we're using really good language. We're using really good examples that anyone can understand, no matter what community they're living in. Okay, and the future module design, we want to do adaptive learning so that as they're taking little quizzes throughout the module, it is taking them on a different path of learning. If they need to go back and learn something, or if they're learning quickly, it'll kind of speed up. We want to have language translations. Hopefully we'll do that in the beginning, but that might take a little bit of time. The best example of those are Paul Fisher's learning modules that he does at the University of Florida, and he speaks Spanish, so he does them bilingually. And we also want to have spoken versions. Again, there may be people who don't know how to read, who want to learn how to do these things, and provisions for incomplete secondary education. So lastly, we're seeking to align with all the groups on the screen. I've had multiple conversations with every one of these groups. Some of them we have letters of memorandums of understanding. Some of them we're going to be developing those with just to kind of formalize it. But we want to reach out. We want to fit in with what they're doing and not compete with it, but we want to make them better and have them make us better. So that's really where we are on this program. We've already initiated the advisory council. That's just been completed. So I have 10 folks from industry who have agreed to help me throughout this year develop these modules, and I'm just about to start on them at the end of this month on those learning modules. Then we'll launch the pilot early next year, and then begin to market this and go live where we can offer this credentialing training to other parts of the other members of the industry. With that, I've talked enough, and I'm hoping I've inspired a few questions, which I'll be glad to take. But thank you for your attention today, and thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Rob. What exciting programs coming up. I really, really appreciate.
Yeah, thank you.